Every 4 years, the ancient Greek world did the unthinkable. They stopped fighting. Spears were laid down, armies paused, and even sworn enemies traveled in peace to a sacred valley. Why would a civilization renowned for endless rivalries choose sport over war? And what was so powerful about this gathering that even kings obeyed? You're about to discover how the Olympic Games became more than a contest of athletes. They became a ritual of survival, unity, and memory. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Before we begin, just a quick housekeeping note. If you enjoy what I'm doing, a like and subscribe would be really helpful. It goes a long way in keeping the channel going. And don't forget to drop a comment. I'd really love to know what you think. Imagine waking up in a land where your neighbors were never far away, yet they were rarely trusted. Across Greece, society was organized into polis, independent city-states, each with its own government, army, and ambitions. A polis might be only a day's walk from the next, separated not by vast frontiers, but by a ridge of mountains or a stretch of sea. Geography shaped the land into pockets, encouraging self-rule and making cooperation difficult. The result was a collection of small powers, constantly aware of each other and often at odds. In this world, conflict was a common occurrence. Borders were not fixed lines, but temporary claims, held only as long as a force could defend them. One season might end in victory, and the next could see those gains reversed. Raids interrupted harvests. Sieges forced populations into hunger. Men fought not against foreigners with strange customs, but against those who looked and spoke almost exactly like themselves. The paradox was stark. Greeks shared a language, religion, and myths, yet their loyalty stopped at the city wall. Alliances, when formed, offered little reassurance. Today, a coastal polis might sail beside you to raid an enemy port. Tomorrow, that same partner could leave you undefended when a rival city threatened your fields. Coalitions disbanded quickly because each polis acted according to its own shifting interests. For people living through it, uncertainty was constant. Loyalties were brittle, friendships provisional, enemies always near. Still, a sense of belonging larger than politics did exist. The Greeks shared their rituals, gods, and heroes with one another. Stories of Heracles wrestling monsters or Odysseus sailing home from Troy reminded each city that they were part of a shared culture. On stage and in poetry, Greece existed. In daily life, it did not. A king might rule in one polis, an assembly in another, a tyrant in a third. Political boundaries shifted like sand. Imagination's unity was strong, but the unity of action was absent. Without a firm anchor, this shared culture risked falling apart. Imagine a vase shattered on stone. Every shard belongs to the same vessel, but scattered, the pattern is lost. Greece was like that. Philosophy in one polis, poetry in another, theater elsewhere, each bright, but with no lasting thread. What kept them from scattering completely was the search for a force that could bind identity together without demanding political agreement. And here is where the problem became sharper. If Greeks were to act as a single civilization, even occasionally, they needed shared markers in time. Yet each polis used its own calendar, with festivals tied to local seasons and decisions of local magistrates. How do you organize events claiming to represent all Greeks when no city counts the passing days quite the same? That puzzle alone shows how fragile any sense of unity was, and it posed an urgent question. What could synchronize a patchwork of calendars, loyalties, and rivalries? The solution was unlike anything in politics. Instead of treaties or councils, Greeks looked to ritual. Athletic contests became the common ground. At first glance, it makes little sense. Running, wrestling, and horse racing seem trivial compared to war. Yet the decision to pause campaigns for sport created a new framework. Armies laid down their arms not out of fear, but to honor something all Greeks recognized: the gods. That act carried weight. When conflict could be halted in obedience to sacred games, it proved that there was a layer of identity stronger than rivalry. For a few days, warriors walked side by side to a valley in the Peloponnese, not as conquerors, but as competitors. They bore the badges of their cities, but in Olympia, they were called Hellenes, Greeks, united under the gaze of Zeus. Rivals still measured their strength, but combat shifted into contests where victory meant glory, not blood. In these gatherings, myth transformed into ritual. Tales of heroes no longer merely existed in poetry. They were enacted through running, throwing, and athletic struggles. The qualities admired in war, discipline, speed, courage, were celebrated without causing divisions among communities. A foot race could identify Greece's fastest man, but when he crossed the finish line, his victory was not about destroying the enemy. It was about honoring his polis and commemorating them all. By turning competition into sacred games, the Greeks developed a cultural survival mechanism. Politics might divide them endlessly, but ritualized sport redefined rivalry as a shared heritage. The games proved that they were more than just fragments. They were parts of a civilization capable of pausing, remembering, and briefly uniting as one. Yet, one question remained. Among all available tools of unity, why select contests of the body rather than the agreements of councils or decrees of kings? What force could convince sworn rivals to lay down their arms, not for diplomacy, but for races and games? That question found an unusual answer, not through a treaty, but through a festival. Why would rival armies lower their weapons and grant safe passage to their foes, all to gather for athletic contests? The explanation lies in how the Greeks saw the world around them. Athletics were not mere diversions. They were sacred acts, rooted in religion and myth, and essential ways of displaying arete, the excellence of body and spirit, under the watchful gaze of the gods. For them, contests of strength and speed were demonstrations of loyalty, discipline, and devotion carried out before Zeus himself. Winning was celebrated, of course, but victory was not the only aim. The act of competing was itself a form of offering. To wrestle until exhausted, to run until breath failed, to endure pain willingly. These were understood as sacrifices of the body. The stadium, the wrestling ground, and the boxing ring were not mere playfields. They were altars, marked not by fire and incense, but by sweat and blood. In pursuit of excellence, Greek athletes believed they were pleasing the gods and engaging in a timeless ritual of human striving. The myths told the same story in legendary form. Zeus's rise to power was not a quiet succession. It involved a cosmic struggle, wrestling down Cronus to seize authority. That image of contest shaped how Greeks imagined divinity itself. Power was earned through struggle. When Heracles, son of Zeus, completed his labors and then measured out the first stadion, the length of the sprint that became the core Olympic race, he stamped competition into the landscape as a divine act. To sprint that length was not arbitrary. It was an echo of Heracles' footsteps, a chance for mortals to retrace the steps of a hero whose endurance had been sanctified. Other myths presented different foundations. A local story made Pelops, a hero of Olympia, the central figure of it all. According to legend, he won his bride Hippodamia by defeating her father, King Oenomaus, in a dangerous chariot race. This victory, associated with love, betrayal, and dynastic change, inspired funeral games in Oenomaus' honor and established Pelops as a cult figure at Olympia. The track, the contests, and the rituals at his shrine all reminded participants that the games were as much about honoring myth and lineage as they were about human achievement. Even in Homer's Iliad, centuries earlier, athletics appeared as a sacred tradition. When Achilles honored his fallen friend Patroclus, he did so not just with tears or words, but with funeral games. Warriors competed in chariot races, boxing matches, wrestling bouts, and archery contests. These activities framed mourning as a form of competition, a way of demonstrating devotion through visible struggle. The origins of Olympia are evident in this area. To the Greek mind, to honor gods or the dead, one did not merely reflect in silence, one completed. Two simple words carried a great deal of significance. Agon meant struggle or contest, the drive to test oneself against others, whether on the battlefield, in politics, or at Olympia. Nike meant victory, more than personal gain. It was the symbol of divine recognition, the winged goddess crowning those whom the gods favored. Together, Agon and Nike defined Greek athletics as something sacred. To struggle was to honor the gods. To win was proof of their approval. This is why, for the Greeks, gymnastics and combat were never merely exercises. Running across a dusty plain was part of a ritual. Throwing a discus reflected a god's strength. Every athlete became, for a brief moment, both competitor and priest. The contest itself was the liturgy, the body the sacrifice. Watching from the stands was not passive entertainment. It was witnessing worship in human form. In this context, the suspension of war was entirely consistent with the situation. Every polis could debate alliances and borders, but none could ignore the higher authority of Zeus. Laying down arms and traveling to Olympia was an act of piety, not a concession. Rivalry did not cease, it was redirected. Instead of fighting with weapons, contenders fought fatigue and fear. Every race and wrestling match became a substitute for conflict, channeling aggression into serving the divine. Myths provided shape and meaning. Funeral games, Heracles' heroics, the foundational contest of Pelops, all underscored that sacred struggle was the proper response to both life and death. Each contest echoed legendary figures and divine stories. A wrestler in the dust could be reenacting the cosmic struggles of gods and giants. A runner pushing for the finish line was not just chasing victory, but replaying footsteps blessed by myth. Thus, Olympia served a dual purpose. It fulfilled the religious urge to honor the gods through action, while providing a cultural means for city-states to gather peacefully. The greater danger of defying Zeus balanced the threat of invasion. Violating the truce and shedding blood at Olympia would not only attract political wrath, but divine anger. This fear, combined with genuine devotion, ensured men accepted the ceasefire. To fight when others worshipped was unthinkable. This system imbued Greek identity with great strength. Imagine thousands flowing into the sacred valley of Olympia, warriors, kings, farmers, poets, all converging from rival cities. They arrived without weapons because their offerings were not iron or fire, but their bodies in motion. For a moment, instead of being Athenians, Spartans, or Corinthians, they became Hellenes, united by a shared heritage, myths, and gods. Competition was a force of unity through struggle, not treaties. It is here that belief attained its highest purpose. Through athletics, Greece maintained its cultural rhythm despite ongoing discord. Every contest reminded both competitors and spectators of their identity, a people characterized by arete, by excellence under divine observation. Each race, fight, and sacrifice added to the collective memory, binding fractious polis beneath a single imagination. Yet belief alone could not sustain unity indefinitely. Faith presented the games as sacred, but rituals also required structure, dates, cycles, and a shared measure of time. Without rhythm, belief became scattered. That is why the Greeks established the Olympiad, the 4-year cycle that turned sacred contests into a civilization's calendar. Belief made the contests sacred, but belief alone needed a framework. That framework was the Olympiad. Why did the Greeks choose to mark time around a single sprint? Among all the rituals and offerings at Olympia, why did one short race become the pivotal event linking memory and recorded history? The year 776 BC was assigned that honor. However, it is essential to be precise. This was not the literal first contest at Olympia. Archaeology shows that shrines, sacrifices, and gatherings had already taken place on that ground for centuries. Instead, 776 BC is the traditional date later adopted by Greek chronographers, because from that point, they could rely on victor lists starting with a particular man, Coroebus of Elis, a local cook, who won the Stadion race. That race, a sprint of about 192 meters, was the first firmly recorded Olympic event, and his victory provided the anchor for the First Olympiad. On its own, it might seem an unimpressive event, one man racing across a short track of packed clay. Yet that burst of speed carried far-reaching significance. Before this, each city-state kept its own time, marking periods according to festivals, magistrates, or lunar cycles that varied from one polis to another. A year in Athens did not perfectly align with a year in Sparta. This fractured sense of chronology reflected the prevailing political realities of the time. Collecting stories into a shared history was nearly impossible when even the seasons were named differently across Greece. The decision to treat 776 BC as the First Olympiad allowed all Greeks to start counting together. Every 4 years, the games would recur, and each Olympiad would become a fixed point of reference. Historians could now organize events in relation to a typical cycle. A treaty might be said to occur in the 3rd year of the nth Olympiad, a battle in the 2nd, or temple building in the 1st. As later chroniclers, such as Thucydides, showed, Olympiads became reliable anchors for recounting history. Once that framework was in place, fractured stories could be woven into a shared chronology. Think of it this way. The Olympiad was like a metronome. Before it, every polis played its own rhythm, sometimes similar, often clashing. With Olympia as the beat, they finally adopted a standard time signature. Suddenly, Greece had a shared pulse that everyone recognized, regardless of politics or rivalry. Every 4 years, the cycle returned, in war or peace, with tyrannies rising and falling. And at its heart was not a king or decree, but an athlete's sprint, pure and unembellished. That is remarkable. Other cultures structured their history around dynasties, the crowning of rulers, or major wars. The Greeks chose instead to start their formal chronology with a race. and not just any contest. The stadion was the simplest of competitions. There were no chariots, no armor, no elaborate strategies. Victory belonged only to whoever ran fastest over roughly 200 meters. It was as if Greek civilization was declaring excellence of the body, tested in the most straightforward, fairest way possible, would be the foundation on which their record of time was built. The mythic undertones ran deep. Heracles was believed to have measured out the length of the stadion with his own colossal strides, linking the race to divine precedent. Running that distance was therefore a way of stepping over ground marked by a demigod. Similarly, the local hero Pelops, celebrated in Olympia, tied cycles of contest to dynastic legend. By invoking such figures, the Greeks did more than measure time. They linked time to myth, intertwining human effort with divine narrative. Each Olympiad was not only a practical calendar, but a spiritual one. So when Coroebus of Elis broke the line in 776 BC, his victory mattered less than the structure it established. From then on, every stadium champion would associate that Olympiad with their achievement, and each Olympiad would become a heartbeat of civilization. Generations later, Greeks could look back and date entire events, not by kings, but by the rhythm of races. This gave their culture a form of collective memory stronger than local variations of speech or law. No matter how shifting their loyalties, they all participated in a single cycle, measured by footprints in the dust at Olympia. What made the system resilient was its longevity. The Olympiad did not depend on decrees from a single city, nor on military enforcement. It relied on voluntary respect for Zeus and the sanctity of the Olympic Games. This meant that even when politics collapsed or tyrants fell, the 4-year cycle persisted. Each recurrence reaffirmed continuity, connecting the present with a remembered past. Ordinary citizens could trace their lives through these repeating measures. The same stadium where their ancestors once sprinted remained a marker of their own age. The Greeks had thus found a way to synchronize themselves without a central government. Oral tradition preserved epic tales. Stone carried laws. But the Olympiad linked all of those into a coherent sequence, turning fragments into a timeline. In effect, it provided Greece with a shared clock, one that ticked forward even as battles raged. It showed them that amidst division, there could be at least one fixed point of agreement. A race bound by myth and sanctity could hold the memory of an entire civilization together. Generations after Coroebus, the system still felt natural. Later writers struggled to envision history in any other way. There was a sense of finality in it, yet also a sense of renewal. Each Olympiad closed one chapter and began the next, tying the community to a cycle of repetition and hope. Where elsewhere kingdoms rose and fell, Greece found a cultural anchor that was not subject to conquest, the ritual of the games. Olympia became the steady drumbeat, shaping identity, memory, and order, while the city-states outside continued their disputes. Yet a rhythm of time was not enough on its own. A calendar could tell you when the games should happen, but it could not guarantee that hostile armies would allow safe travel to attend them. A single sprint had indeed become a shared clock, but a clock needed its safeguard, the truce that made the journey possible. How could warriors and travelers alike move safely through enemy territory, unarmed and unguarded, to reach Olympia? The answer was the creation of the Olympic Truce, the Echecheiria. This was no ordinary political pact. It was presented as a sacred directive, a command that warfare should cease so that people across Greece could travel freely to the games. Tradition links its origin to a meeting between King Iphitos of Elis, Lycurgus of Sparta, and Cleosthenes of Pisa, who, during a time of turmoil and plague, consulted the oracle at Delphi. The god Apollo's reply was clear. Peace must be proclaimed when the games were held in honor of Zeus. From that moment, the proclamation of the truce became inseparable from the festival itself. The truce was neither whispered nor assumed. It was declared openly across the Greek world. Heralds known as spondophoroi traveled from city to city, spreading the word of the Ekacheria. Their proclamations granted safe passage through the force of ritual law, repeated and renewed before each Olympiad. At Olympia itself, a bronze disc was displayed in the Temple of Hera to record the truce, reminding every visitor that the gods endorsed the authority for safe passage and neutrality. The act of proclamation established a shared expectation, drawing a line between ordinary politics and the festival's peace. What upheld the truce was not diplomacy, but the fear of divine and civic punishment. To break the agreement was to dishonor Zeus himself, protector of Olympia, and Apollo, who had issued the oracle's command. Religion lent the truce its authority, but practical deterrence reinforced it. Organization in Elis imposed fines and punishments on violators, and records of breaches were kept as warnings. Some penalties funded bronze statues called zanes, erected at the entrance to the stadium. These shameful monuments served as reminders that cheating or breaking the truce would tarnish their city's honor for generations to come. Religion provided the truce with divine strength. Civic penalties and public shame delivered the consequence. In practice, this system addressed a very immediate problem. Olympia was not an urban center where neighbors lived side by side. It lay in a quiet river valley, remote from major capitals. Athletes, trainers, officials, musicians, merchants, poets, and pilgrims all had to travel from different regions, often through hostile territory, to reach the sanctuary of Zeus. With the truce in force, roads became neutral corridors. Cities agreed to open their gates and restrain hostile patrols. Piracy lessened on coastal routes. Imagine a runner leaving Thebes, crossing rival territory without fear, because all those he passed were obliged by sacred order to let him through. That network of safe passage was what made the Panhellenic character of the games possible. Without the Ekacheria, participation would have been limited to neighboring states. The games would not have been the gathering of all Greece. The truce expanded Olympia's reach. Not only did athletes travel, but also traders bringing goods, sculptors arranging commissions, poets eager for an audience, and philosophers seeking to test ideas in a crowd. Olympia evolved into a multifaceted festival, uniting the intellectual, artistic, and economic aspects of Greek life alongside athletics. The truce created more than peace on the road. It made the possibility of a cultural crossroads. Breach of the truce could have serious consequences. Spartan forces once ignored Olympia's neutrality. Incursions by Arcadians were recorded, and later, Macedonian rulers violated the sacred ground. These examples remind us that the truce was powerful but imperfect. Still, punishments were severe and public. Entire armies faced fines. Repeatedly mentioned in public records, their names became bywords for disgrace. That visibility mattered in a society obsessed with honor. To face your peers at Olympia knowing your city's reputation had been condemned was humiliation almost as crushing as defeat in the games themselves. The effect of the truce extended beyond logistics. By suspending hostilities, it created one of the rarest conditions in Greece: open mingling between sworn enemies. For a short time, a Spartan might stand among an Athenian crowd, or a man from Rhodes could sit with someone from Corinth. Traders exchanged goods without suspicion. Diplomats held discussions under the shield of neutrality, and stories and songs could travel freely from one region to another. Each Olympiad became a brief glimpse into a Greek world that might have been interconnected, trusting, and safe. What had begun as obedience to an oracle became part of Greece's cultural survival. The truce demonstrated that rivalry did not make unity impossible. It carved narrow corridors of peace through violent land, allowing shared heritage to flourish. Even if wars resumed afterwards, the repeated pause reminded every participant that there was something higher than city loyalty, the authority of Zeus, and the obligations of shared ritual. The games were more than contests, because they were events everyone could attend without fear, under the same rules and with the same respect. Olympia itself benefited from this arrangement. Sitting in the modest territory of Elis, it was not an imperial capital demanding obedience. Its neutrality was symbolic. The truce confirmed that status. Within its sacred boundaries, men tested themselves in contests judged by fairness, not weapons. While war raged elsewhere, Olympia maintained its role as common ground, shaping the way Greeks thought of themselves as Hellenes first in worship, if not in politics. Out of that suspension of violence emerged the vision of Panhellenism, the idea that, despite their differences, they all belong to a single cultural heritage. Over time, this cycle of declaration and obedience left an enduring mark. Every 4 years, heralds proclaimed a new beginning, and each proclamation carried an implicit reminder. Rivals could set aside arms, if only briefly, when guided by gods and ritual. The repetition gave the truce rhythm, just as the Olympiad gave time its pattern. Together, they created a rhythm that outlasted temporary alliances and dynasties, and both became part of Greece's historical memory. Of course, the truce did not eliminate conflict. It remained temporary, fragile, and always reliant on mutual respect. But that fragility emphasized its importance. Without it, Olympia could have been merely a local festival. With it, the roads across Greece underwent a significant transformation. Strangers became travel companions. Rivals became competitors rather than warriors. For a brief period, across contested territory, the promise of peace became a reality. Thanks to the truce, roads became safe pathways. Olympia could genuinely be a Panhellenic site. However, what granted this neutral meeting place its unique power was not only agreement among men, but also the sacred landscape they entered upon arrival. Olympia's sacred landscape was unlike any other place in Greece. It was not a bustling polis filled with markets, homes, and citizens, but a sanctuary set apart from the world. There were no permanent residents, no city walls, and no civic buildings for daily governance. Its neutrality stemmed precisely from this absence. Olympia existed only as a sacred center, administered by the nearby polis of Elis, whose officials organized the games and upheld its sanctity. This separation ensured that when rivals entered Olympia, they stepped into neutral territory, continuously defined by ritual devotion. At the heart of the site stood the Altis, the sacred grove enclosed by walls, containing temples, treasuries, altars, and the core spaces of worship and contest. To step into the Altis was to cross into a landscape arranged for divine order. Here, sacred architecture sat alongside sport. Within the grove, you could look left to see a vast temple and turn right to glimpse the entrance to the stadium. The Athenians and Corinthians, who had once clashed in war, now walked the same paths, each absorbed into a space that acknowledged rivalry, but integrated it into ritual. The great altar of Zeus dominated this sacred center. Built from layers of ash accumulated through centuries of sacrifice, it was a monument grown by ritual itself. Every year, more animals were slaughtered, their bones burnt, their ashes piled, until the altar became a living record of devotion. During the games, it became the site of the hecatomb, where 100 oxen were sacrificed in Zeus's honor. Priests sprinkled blood, smoke rose from the burning carcasses, and then moments later, the stadium roared with races. The rhythm of worship and competition worked like alternating beats, sacrifice to the gods, then trial of strength for men. The Temple of Hera was nearby, one of the oldest monumental buildings in Olympia. For centuries, it housed the cult statues of Hera and Zeus, and here also stood the inscribed bronze disc proclaiming the Olympic Truce. Its presence reminded all visitors entering the grove that the peace they traveled under was not only a political agreement, but also a sacred command. This same temple later became associated with the Hellenic Games, athletic events for young women that emphasized that worship at Olympia was not exclusively male. The Temple of Zeus, built in the mid-5th century BC, became the spiritual and architectural center of the sanctuary. Inside stood Phidias's colossal statue of Zeus, made of gold and ivory, seated on a throne with a scepter in one hand and Nike in the other. This statue, later regarded as one of the 7 wonders of the world, filled the inner chamber with awe and wonder. Victors and pilgrims alike entered in silence, reminded that every race, throw, or fight outside was dedicated to the god whose image dominated them. South of the temple stood the Pelopion, a mound dedicated to the hero Pelops. Legend said he had won his bride, Hippodamia, here in a chariot race that ended with the death of her father, King Oenomaus. Annual sacrifices at this shrine linked the games directly to myth, ensuring every gathering retold the founding story. Competing at Olympia meant retracing not just the footsteps of heroes, but also their struggles, victories, and sacrifices made with blood. Encircling the Altes were treasuries, gleaming small structures built by city-states to hold offerings. A city might dedicate shields captured in war, bronze tripods, or statues made from booty or civic funds. Each treasury proclaimed wealth, religiosity, and prestige through architecture rather than arms. As you walked among them, you could see the rivalry of cities laid out in orderly sequence, political competition channeled into piety, each polis boasting of its power through splendid gifts to Zeus, rather than by open conflict. Beyond the sacred grove lay the sports grounds. The stadium, a strip of packed earth about 192 meters long, the same length as the Stadion race, opened onto grassy banks where crowds in the tens of thousands gathered under the summer sun. Here, the shout of the starter signaled contests that would bring fame for years to come. Just south was the Hippodrome, a much larger track where horse and chariot races thundered across the dust, dangerous and spectacular. Elsewhere in Olympia, the Palaestra and Gymnasium provided training spaces for fighters and runners, while the Leonidaion housed ambassadors and honored guests. The entire complex blended devotion, athleticism, and diplomacy into a single landscape. To modernize, the combination might seem strange. Shrines for prayer alongside tracks for wrestling and sprinting. Yet, in Olympia, this merging gave purpose to the contests. Athletes swore oaths before statues of Zeus, promising fair play. Victors did not keep their glory as a personal triumph. Instead, They offered olive wreaths and statues as a gesture of thanks. In this way, even the most violent struggles, boxing matches, chariot crashes, bodies colliding in wrestling, became part of worship. Competitors participated in rituals, their sweat and pain transforming into sacrifices as sacred as the animals at Zeus's altar. The political aspect developed around this core. City-states built monuments to celebrate collective victories, some commemorating triumphs in war, while others displayed elaborate statues. The Great Serpent Column, erected after the Battle of Plataea, was later relocated to Delphi and featured corresponding offerings at Olympia. Each gesture reaffirmed that here, even political pride had to follow sacred expression. By turning rivalry into inscriptions and dedications, the sanctuary incorporated competition into forms that enriched its sacredness rather than threatened it. The sanctuary's neutrality was vital. Since Olympia was not a city in its own right, it could serve as common ground. The Eleans, who oversaw it, claimed no imperial dominance, but presented themselves as guardians of Zeus's sanctuary. That protective neutrality made Olympia a stage everyone could use, a place where rulers announced alliances, diplomats exchanged messages, and poets shared verses, all without fear that the ground itself belonged to one hostile city. Even when foreign rulers and conquerors dominated Greece, Olympia largely retained its sense of immunity, respected due to its sacred aura and international reputation. For those arriving, the impression must have been extraordinary. You could walk through valleys and pine groves, come upon towering temples, smell the burnt flesh of sacrifice, and then hear the roar of a packed stadium moments later. Statues of victorious athletes lined the pathways. Monuments from city-states proclaimed civic pride. Priests intoned prayers. Dust rose as sprinters shot forward on the track. All of it felt woven together in a single, orchestrated rhythm. Religion, politics, and rivalry transformed into memory under Zeus's gaze. Olympia's landscape was carefully designed for this purpose. The Altes concentrated divine presence. The stadium hosted the human contests. The treasuries symbolized political rivalry reborn as devotion. Tension was not avoided, but staged. The architecture of the site permitted division, pride, and struggle to exist without collapse. That balance gave it endurance for centuries, supporting the games through wars, tyrannies, and shifting powers. However, temples and altars were ultimately frameworks for worship. What truly sustained Olympia's fame were the competitions themselves. The foot races, wrestling bouts, and the deadly serious pancration. These were what drew crowds and transformed ordinary athletes into figures remembered for generations. And those contests did not remain static. Over time, the games evolved, growing from a single sprint into a full-fledged festival whose variety reflected the ideals of Greek life itself. When you imagine Olympia at its peak, picture not just a single day of races, but a festival that spans many days, from dawn until dusk. The valley erupted with activity, stadium competitions, sacrifices at Zeus's altar, processions of athletes, traders filling the open grounds, and poets and musicians eager for an audience. What started as one sprint had grown into a program so extensive it encompassed every aspect of Greek life in a single cycle of celebration. The earliest contests were simple. First, there was the stadion sprint. Then its distance was doubled with the diaulos, and not long after, the long-distance dolichos. These races tested both speed and endurance, allowing spectators to witness competitors stumble, sweat, and strain as they fought exhaustion as much as rivals. Over time, the program expanded. Wrestling was introduced. Its aim is not to maim, but to throw an opponent cleanly to the ground. Boxing followed, a bloodier and harsher sport, with fighters binding their fists with leather straps. Then came the equestrian contests, horse and chariot races that thundered through clouds of dust. Each new edition increased Olympia's appeal and reflected different facets of Greek society: military prowess, aristocratic wealth, brute strength, and common endurance. The pentathlon was among the most celebrated of these editions. It combined 5 events into one contest: the long jump, discus, javelin, stadium sprint, and wrestling. Instead of favoring narrow specialization, it honored the athlete who was versatile enough to excel across disciplines. To win meant you embodied arete, the Greek ideal of balanced excellence. Victory in the pentathlon was significant. It declared you strong, precise, agile, and enduring all at once, representing the comprehensive Greek ideal rather than a fragment of it. As the program expanded, so too did the need for order. The Hellenici, the judges of Elis, became essential. Their authority extended well beyond overseeing events. Athletes had to train under their supervision for 10 months before the Games, and only after demonstrating both dedication and eligibility were they permitted to compete. During the festival, these judges maintained strict discipline, sometimes using rods to discipline offenders who broke rules in the heat of the competition. Without their presence, the Games could have descended into chaos. Cheating undermined the sanctity of Olympia, and hence, punishments needed to be visible. Bribery, blackmail, and collusion resulted in hefty fines. However, these fines were not simply collected by Elean officials. Instead, they were converted into bronze statues of Zeus, known as Zanes, erected at the entrance to the stadium. Each bore inscriptions condemning the dishonesty it commemorated. All athletes and spectators passing by these statues were confronted with shame cast in bronze, serving as a silent reminder that dishonoring the Games was equivalent to dishonoring Zeus himself. This strict oversight provided Olympia with both tension and stability. Competition was intense, but rituals framed it, and civic pride was centered around it. Sacrifices, athletic contests, and political displays had to be carefully balanced. Too much focus on the ceremony risked reducing the Games to mere religion. Conversely, excessive leniency among athletes could threaten the sanctity of Olympia, leading to brawls. The skill involved in maintaining that balance was itself an achievement, contributing to Olympia's lasting identity as more than just a sporting event. Equestrian races added further complexity. Only the wealthy could field teams, and the prize went not to the driver, but to the horse's owner. Aristocrats could gain Olympic victories without personally risking their lives in the arena. Rare exceptions also appeared, most famously Caniska of Sparta, who entered and won as an owner. Her case proved that even women, otherwise excluded as competitors, could achieve Olympic glory by proxy. These events reflected both elite wealth and military values, as mastery of horses and chariots also echoed the skills of war. Yet equestrian contests also revealed tension. Their spectacle could outshine the heroics of runners or wrestlers. But here was Olympia's brilliance. Rather than excluding one type of prestige, it embraced all, placing the endurance of the poor alongside the horses of the rich and allowing both to stand within Zeus's festival. That combination made the Games not only inclusive, but resilient. Events expanded further. Special categories for boys provided younger athletes with early paths to fame, teaching them discipline before they reached adulthood. Their running, boxing, or wrestling contests hinted at the adult competitions still to come. Even heralds and trumpeters competed, judged on the strength and clarity of their voices, since they were vital for announcing winners and marshalling the crowd. This reinforced Olympia's role not merely as a sport, but as a festival honoring every craft essential to Greek society. By the time the games matured, they had become as much a theater as an athletics event. Alongside feats of strength, you would find poets chanting odes to victors, priests sacrificing oxen at the great altar, musicians playing to mark processions, and envoys from warring cities pausing to speak in neutral ground. Politics, religion, art, and rivalry are all intertwined. No single element was allowed to dominate. Yet, taken together, they defined Olympia as the place where all threads of Hellenic culture were woven into a single, cohesive performance. For the Greeks, this was the true significance of the festival's growth. It demonstrated that their civilization valued balance, competition conducted within rules, ambition governed by ritual, and pride upheld by honor. Olympia was made strong not through the absence of rivalry, but through its regulation, transforming chaotic conflict into structured contests that both men and gods could witness fairly. By uniting the passions of athletes, the wealth of elites, the voices of heralds, and the prayers of priests within one sanctuary, the festival evolved from a simple race day into a reflection of Greece itself. That reflection revealed another striking custom, one still unfamiliar to outsiders. Every contest began with a symbolic act of equality. Athletes were required to strip themselves bare before competing. To a Greek, this act represented not shame, but discipline, purity, and devotion to Zeus. And to the thousands who packed shoulder to shoulder in the stadium, it signified that competition commenced with nothing left concealed. The Greeks referred to it as the naked ideal. In Olympia's sanctuary, competitors shed every garment and entered the track without disguise. To outsiders, this seemed shocking. To the Greeks, it was a declaration of truth. By stripping, an athlete revealed nothing but his discipline, strength, and courage before Zeus. Some sources even claim that it began with Orsippus of Megara, who allegedly ran unclothed as early as 720 BC. Although the tradition's roots may run deeper, the primary meaning was equality. To stand unclad removed all visible signs of rank. In Olympia, the nobleman who enslaved people and estates lined up beside the farmer who tended his own plots. Both appeared equal at the starting line. Clothing that could signal wealth or poverty disappeared. Nudity leveled distinctions, leaving only the measure of training and resolve. In a fractured Greece where status was jealously guarded, this was a powerful statement. Under Zeus's eye, competition judged only the body, not birth. That choice also startled and puzzled other cultures. Later, Roman rulers viewed it with distaste, finding the sight of adult men competing naked indecent. However, to the Greeks, the human form was never shameful when it was trained and disciplined. The body, perfected by exercise, was an emblem of nobility. They saw its lines and motions as proof that virtue could be made visible. Where others saw exposure, the Greeks saw grace. The body was the only garment they trusted to communicate courage and reverence. This outlook shaped entire institutions. The gymnasium, literally place of nudity, was central to Greek life. It offered more than space to wrestle or run. Within its walls, youths studied philosophy as well as sport. Lectures on virtue accompanied drills of strength. The Greeks named this harmony kalokagathia, the ideal balance of beauty and goodness. To be praised as kalos Kagathos was to embody both physical excellence and moral integrity. The Palaestra, a smaller, related space, housed wrestling courts and shaded colonnades for resting, thinking, or debate. Through these places, the naked body became not only an image of strength, but also an embodiment of a disciplined mind and character. Practical benefits gave weight to this custom. Athletes prepared themselves with ritual precision, first rubbing in olive oil, which softened and protected the skin while catching the light to emphasize the body's form. Then sprinkling dust or fine sand across their limbs to improve grip during wrestling and absorb sweat. Then, when training ended, scraping away the mixture with curved bronze strigils. The residue, a combination of sweat, oil, and dust, was called gloios. Trainers sometimes collected and sold it, valuing it as a tonic of concentrated strength. This rhythm of oil, sand, and scraping transformed simple maintenance into a ritual. It emphasized that every detail of care linked body, health, and piety. In this way, sweat itself was revered, a visible sign of effort. The sight of a naked, oiled athlete under the sun was not meant to evoke shame, but admiration, indicating that here was a man shaped by months of training. The body revealed its truth immediately, lean or heavy, swift or enduring, sculpted solely through work. Nothing could be concealed. Prizes embodied this philosophy. The official award was a wreath of wild olive, cut from a tree near Zeus's temple. Its value in coins was insignificant. Its worth in honor was immeasurable. The wreath represented divine approval. To be crowned with it was to be regarded as favored by Olympus itself. For mortals to wear it signified they had wrestled or raced not only for themselves, but as offerings of excellence to Zeus. Yet victory never remained simply symbolic. A champion returned home, transformed. His polis might grant him free meals in the town hall for life, exemption from taxes, and even a statue erected in his likeness. Poets penned odes that secured his name in collective memory. Some Olympic victors entered politics. Their athletic triumphs were reinterpreted as a form of civic authority. In this way, nudity concealed status during competition, but amplified it afterwards. Men were stripped of their equal status in the stadium, yet one crown elevated them to honored elites in society. That paradox lay at the core of the naked ideal. Competition temporarily dissolved status, but victory immediately transformed it into privilege. The ideal held both together, equality in striving, hierarchy in reward. It reflected the rhythm of Greek life, a mosaic of rival cities, briefly leveled in ritual, then proud again once the festival concluded. For the athletes, triumph transformed into something even more enduring. It represented Kleos, immortal fame. Kleos was the song of your name echoing after death. Bodies grew weaker with age, but stories preserved honor. The Greeks understood this from Homer's heroes and carried it into the stadium. To run naked in the stadium race was to proclaim your pursuit of Kleos, exposing your very self for the chance to be remembered. Statues and poems kept that memory alive for future generations. The boundaries of this custom remained clear. It was an ideal celebrated by men, limited to their contests. Married women were excluded even as spectators, while virgins competed clothed in the separate Heraean games. Outsiders often failed to understand the practice, dismissing it as indecent. However, for the Greeks, it naturally fit into their broader system of religious devotion and civic pride. Athletes appearing naked before Zeus embodied both reverence and discipline. The image brought art to life. Sculptors carved athletes in realistic nudity, depicting balanced proportions, tense muscles, and serene expressions. These statues decorated temples and public spaces, everlasting echoes of the games long gone. Each served as a reminder of what the Greeks called arete, excellence of both body and soul. Through sculpture, the naked athlete became a symbol, representing society itself. What made this ideal extraordinary was how it challenged ordinary instincts. Most societies hide the body to preserve dignity. The Greeks displayed it to demonstrate virtue. To stand unclothed was not exposure, but elevation. Rival Polis accepted this truth when they watched their athletes stripped naked in Olympia. The shared sight of bare, trained bodies under the summer sun conveyed a unity stronger than law. But Olympia was never solely about graceful poise. The naked body, admired in sculpted form, could also be battered, bloodied, and broken. Alongside the elegance of races and pentathlons, some events revealed the more brutal side of Greek ideals. Here, competition exposed not harmony, but survival itself, testing whether an athlete's resolve could endure beyond beauty. Some contests did not celebrate form. They pushed men to the edge of pain, and sometimes beyond the bounds of life. Victories in Olympia were not always defined by elegance or balance. Some of the most celebrated triumphs arose from contests where control devolved into raw violence, such as wrestling, boxing, and the brutal all-out struggle of pankration. These battles were fought amid dust, sweat, and blood, where displays of force could end careers, scar bodies, or even claim lives. For the Greeks, that was precisely the point. Victory mattered most when achieved through endurance under the harshest conditions. Wrestling was the oldest of these combat sports. A match was won by throwing an opponent to the ground 3 times cleanly. At first glance, the rules seemed straightforward. No punches, no weapons, no elaborate tricks. Yet, matches could extend into prolonged battles of balance, patience, and leverage. 2 men grappled in silence, broken only by the roar of the crowd, each movement of weight decisive, and each mistake costly. Wrestling demonstrated that strength alone was insufficient. Discipline, timing, and calm control under pressure were equally vital. The Greeks prized this balance because it embodied the ideal of strength guided by reason. By contrast, boxing prioritized force over restraint. Fighters wrapped their hands in strips of leather, sometimes hardened to deliver more severe blows. There were no weight divisions, so a smaller man could find himself matched against a much larger opponent. The fight only ended when one of the combatants collapsed or signaled surrender. Faces were split, bones broken, yet the crowd cheered wildly. To stand upright amid a barrage of punches, refusing to flinch, was seen as a mark of courage and resolve. For the Greeks, this echoed their heroic myths. To endure wounds without retreat demonstrated the same toughness expected of warriors in battle. Brutality was not an accident. It was the measure of endurance. And if boxing pushed men to their limits, pankration existed to discover what happened when almost nothing was off limits. This was the most feared and most celebrated contest in the Olympic Games. It combined boxing and wrestling and removed nearly all safeguards. Competitors could punch, kick, choke, and twist joints with full force. Only biting and eye gouging were forbidden. Everything else was permitted. Sudden knockouts and suffocating holds mingled with long, painful matches where neither man yielded. For the crowd, that unpredictability created theater unlike anything else. Here, mortals tested how far they could resist pain before collapsing. One story from pankration became legendary: the victory of Aricion of Phigaleia. In the final of his match in 564 BC, he was trapped in a chokehold, his opponent's arms locked tight around his throat. Breath fled his body, yet even as consciousness dimmed, he did not surrender. With one last effort, he lashed out, breaking his opponent's ankle. The man cried in pain, signaling defeat. Arikian's body fell lifeless at the exact moment. He never drew breath again, yet the judges placed the olive wreath on his head. In death, he had won. For the Greeks, Arikian's fate was no tragedy alone. It was the ultimate proof that perseverance itself could carry a man to immortal honor. His name was remembered long after, an example of how victory could transcend life itself. Why did such savage contests hold so much prestige? Partly because the Greeks believed these struggles bore the mark of their patron hero, Heracles. As the son of Zeus, the strongest of all demigods, Heracles embodied courage through trial and labor. Athletes who dared to endure heavy blows or strangling holds were seen as emulating his spirit. Some victors, such as Theagenes of Thasos, were even thought to descend from him, their strength a thread linking mortal achievement to divine ancestry. Combat sport was thus not random bloodletting, but ritualized imitation of heroes. Yet brutality alone could not win admiration. Control was equally vital. A fighter gained respect not only by twisting an opponent's limb, but also by knowing when to release once victory was achieved. Unchecked savagery risked dishonoring Zeus just as much as cowardice did. The point was not slaughter, but self-mastery even under the fiercest conditions. In this balance of violence and restraint, spectators recognized arete, excellence manifested in its rawest form. The experience for the crowd was intense. Thousands sat pressed together, craning to see blows land, gasping as two bodies crashed dangerously onto the ground. Every stir made noise swell, the gasp when a choke seemed too tight, the cheer when a bloodied man refused to fall, the collective roar when one combatant finally collapsed in defeat. These moments were communal, as much about shared witness as individual triumph. Poets ensured victories were not forgotten. Pindar himself composed odes for champions of Pancratium, praising their courage and lifting their names into collective memory. In his verses, victories in these brutal contests were seen as signs of divine favor, proof that the gods had granted endurance where others failed. For the victor's polis, these honors mattered greatly. An Olympic win in combat was civic treasure as much as personal triumph, a signal to rivals that one's citizens produced men capable of surviving contests fit for gods and heroes alike. Victors did not just win crowns, they gained lasting prestige for their entire community. Defeat, too, could bring dignity. To fight until collapse, to struggle visibly even when overwhelmed, was still to offer up strength and courage as a form of devotion. The gods were honored not in avoiding hardship, but in enduring it. Every bruise, cut, or broken rib stood as proof that a man had placed his entire body in service of the contest. Even loss could be a kind of offering when borne without retreat. The paradox is apparent. Greece valued harmony, grace, and proportion, yet placed equal importance on contests where bodies were battered close to destruction. For the Greeks, both aspects belonged within arete, the runner's fluid motion and the pancratiast's desperate choke were equally tests of excellence in human form. Beauty and brutality were two sides of the same sacred coin. Returning home, the winners of these bloody duels were honored on a civic stage. They might be granted free meals in public, paraded before their citizens, or immortalized in poetry. The prestige was immense because victory was achieved under conditions where failure meant ruin, and victory often required surviving punishments that no ordinary man could withstand. These champions became living symbols of resilience, their names carved into collective pride. Eurytion's crown after death made the stakes of these contests unforgettable. He proved that nothing mattered more than perseverance, not even life itself. Stories like his showed that Olympia's most violent events were not mere diversions. They were rituals in which athletes risked survival for glory, embedding their names into legend. But while men's triumphs and torments filled the stadium, another question lingered. If Olympia was the supposed gathering of all Greeks, where did women stand in this spectacle of power and endurance? Banned from the arena, yet still able to leave their mark, this was the paradox of women at Olympia. The rules of the festival kept contests firmly in male hands, but narrow openings allowed a few women to win honor and recognition. For most, exclusion defined their place. Yet, even from the boundaries, women contributed to the memory of the games in ways Athens, Sparta, and others could not quite erase. The law for married women was absolute. Pausanias records that if a wife crossed into the sanctuary during the games, the punishment was death. Evidence suggests that this rule was rarely enforced, but the threat was sufficient to make the exclusion a reality. The games presented themselves as a male space, a festival devoted to Zeus alone, where women had no standing in the sacred contests that embodied the values of the polis. That atmosphere meant their rare appearances or victories felt all the more visible. Unmarried women occupied a more ambiguous place. Some accounts state they could attend as spectators. Others insist they were also banned. Classical sources contradict one another, revealing the blurred nature of these categories. Yet one fact is apparent. Olympia was shaped as a world apart, whose main spectacle was designed for men. The most substantial female presence was often represented in ritual form. The priestess of Demeter, one of the most revered religious offices in Greece, sat near the altar in the stadium throughout the festival. Her presence reminded onlookers that, although the contests became more male-oriented, ritual life in Greece always carried female authority. Another form of inclusion appeared outside the main games, but within the same sanctuary. These were the Heraean Games, female-only foot races held in honor of Hera. They took place at Olympia at a different time of year and were divided into age categories. Competitors wore short tunics cut high above the knee, leaving one shoulder bare. Victors received olive wreaths, just like the male athletes competing for Zeus. Although the Heraean Games never matched the prestige of the Olympics, they proved that women could participate in their own form of sacred athletics. The symbolism was vivid. Men ran naked in supplication to Zeus, while young women ran clothed in devotion to his queen. Sparta complicated this picture further. Unlike most Greeks, Spartans encouraged girls to exercise in public, believing that strong women would bear strong children. Their society normalized female athletics that horrified Athens and other polis. From this culture emerged the most famous exception of all, Caniska, daughter of King Archidamus. She became the owner of a 4-horse chariot team and, as owner, claimed Olympic victories in 396 and again in 392 BC. These wins were extraordinary, not because she drove the chariot, owners did not, but because ownership itself conferred the crown. The chariot races were unusual in this way. Drivers risked their lives rounding sharp turns at breakneck speed, but official honors went to those who owned the teams. For elite men, this meant they could bask in glory while others took the risk. For Caniska, the rule created a loophole. By supplying the horses, She entered Olympus's roll of honor alongside male victors. Ancient writers repeatedly noted her triumphs. To carve her name onto the festival's history suggested something astonishing. A woman had worn the crown in Zeus's own sanctuary. Sparta celebrated her as evidence of its distinct customs, while for others, her victory showed the porous boundary between exclusion and inclusion, rule and exception. The paradox was never fully resolved. Pausanias claimed that in his time, the ban remained strict. He provided a formal account of married women being forbidden under threat of death, even if enforcement was inconsistent. Yet his own words showed ambiguity. Ritual offices, separate foot races, and equestrian ownership all challenged the idea of a complete ban. These contradictions reflected Greek society itself, where women were excluded from political power but played a central role in religion, absent from politics, but vital in rites for the gods. For spectators, the impact was striking. The stadium displayed the naked male body striving for Zeus, while the memory of female presence lingered at the edges. A priestess dressed in white robes, girls racing for Hera, and an inscription to Kiniska's victories. Together, they formed a social mirror. The ideal of male power was evident, yet symbolic female influence subtly seeped in where ritual and tradition permitted. This uneasy balance defined Olympia's gender politics as much as the competitions themselves. The image was compelling. The main games celebrated male unity through disciplined struggle. The Heraean races demonstrated female devotion through speed. Both were rewarded with olive wreaths. Both took place at Olympia. Yet one held the prestige of the entire Greek world, while the other remained secondary. This gendered structure reflected Greece as a whole. Across the city-states, women had limited roles in political assemblies, but held key positions as priestesses and guardians of religion. The endurance of this pattern is significant. The exclusion of married women was never abolished. However, the Heraean games persisted. The priestess of Demeter retained her position, and Kiniska's example demonstrated that equestrian loopholes could allow women to cross the boundary, at least in exceptional cases. Women were mainly barred from the main festival, but ritual roles, separate races, and equestrian loopholes allowed them to leave distinct marks on Olympia's history. That history would soon face pressures that no ancient law or priestess could withstand. For centuries, Olympia balanced rivalry, ritual, and paradox within Greek traditions. However, with the arrival of new rulers and the expansion of the empire, those traditions began to change. What had once been sacred ground exclusively for Greeks was drawn into the spectacle of Roman power, and the games themselves underwent a change in character under new masters. What happens when emperors insist not only on watching the games, but also on taking part and bending them to their will? Under Roman rule, Olympia entered a new phase that the Greeks of earlier centuries might have struggled to recognize. The balance of piety, ritual, and genuine effort shifted once Rome reshaped the festival to serve its own interests. Initially, the Romans had little admiration for Greek athletics. Naked runners pushing themselves along dusty tracks or wrestlers grappling silently seemed unimpressive compared to the gladiatorial combats, staged hunts, and dramatic shows that filled Roman arenas. For Romans, authentic entertainment stemmed from spectacle and scale rather than ritual sacrifice. However, over time, they recognized that Greece's festivals carried political significance. The Olympics, in particular, provided a platform for emperors to present themselves as patrons of Greek culture. linking Rome's prestige to the ancient traditions of Hellas. This political calculation paved the way for profound changes. No example illustrates this more vividly than that of Nero. In 67 CE, driven by a desire to demonstrate his talents, he stormed into the Olympic arena. He entered a chariot race, but not in the traditional manner. Instead of 4 horses, as customary, he harnessed 10. The team was nearly uncontrollable, and midway through the race, Nero was thrown to the ground. By any usual standard, he had lost. Yet, the emperor declared himself victorious, and the judges, influenced by fear and bribes, confirmed his win. That was only the beginning. Nero added singing and musical performances to the program, events with no precedent at Olympia. He strutted before audiences with lyre and voice, demanding applause and claiming every crown. It was a theater of self-promotion, not worship of Zeus. The athlete's oath, sworn once to prevent deceit, had no power against imperial demands. After his suicide, even the Olympic authorities were forced to act. They declared Nero's Olympiad void and repaid the bribes he had distributed. The entire episode revealed the extent to which Rome could fracture the foundations of a 1,000-year-old tradition. Not all emperors treated Olympia with such reckless vanity. Hadrian, a ruler renowned for his admiration of Greek culture, invested substantial funds in the sanctuary, restoring buildings and reviving ancient ceremonies. For him, supporting the games was a way to celebrate Hellenic tradition while binding it to Rome. Antoninus Pius continued this policy, extending Olympia's importance for another generation. Their patronage could not fully restore the sacred aura, but it slowed the decline and preserved the festival's structure within an empire very different from the polis world that had first created it. Even with such efforts, the spirit of the games shifted. Greek spectators once believed themselves under the gaze of Zeus. Victors swore oaths and made sacrifices. But in Rome's empire, the emphasis lay elsewhere. Audiences craved contests that resembled the circus: blood, danger, noise. The emperor's presence turned athletics into an echo of imperial display. Where once the Olympiad acted as a pan-Hellenic rhythm, it now served more as an ornament for Roman authority. For centuries, the festival survived in name, but the more profound meaning seeped away. Cultural change across the wider empire soon inflicted a greater blow than Nero's arrogance. Christianity progressed steadily from the 1st century onwards. Initially, it coexisted quietly alongside old religions, then became a rival faith, and by the 4th century, it had become the religion of the emperors themselves. Sacrifice was condemned as superstition. Pagan shrines were seen as relics of a misguided past. Rituals that once united Greece became targets for suppression. In 393 CE, Theodosius I issued an edict banning pagan festivals throughout the empire. The Olympics, after more than a millennium of continuity, were formally abolished. Archaeological evidence suggests some athletic contests may have persisted locally, perhaps unofficially or sporadically, but the official tradition had been broken. Without Zeus, without ritual incense curling above the ash altar, the games could no longer carry the meaning they once had. A tradition that had survived 1,000 years of war and rivalry was ended by decree. For Olympia itself, decline meant silence. The sanctuary lost its caretakers. The great altar of Zeus, built over centuries of sacrifice, crumbled where it stood. Temples emptied as roofs collapsed. Earthquakes in the 6th century shook columns into ruins. Floods and landslides covered courtyards with soil. What had been the sacred heart of Greece gradually vanished beneath meters of silt. Nearby villages forgot what lay beneath their fields. To later travelers, the site no longer existed except in fading texts. The contrast with the past was striking. Olympia once measured time with its 4-year cycle. It's true that once they paved the way across a hostile land. Now its calendar has ceased, its paths have vanished, and its gods are silent. Rituals that had lasted over 1,000 years could not survive the new order. Under Rome, spectacles had diminished their sacredness. Under Christianity, the remaining shell was swept away. The irony is apparent. Emperors who once entered Olympia to claim divine glory left only ruins, buried and abandoned by the very history they sought to control. Hadrian's patronage, Antoninus's guardianship, these could not reverse the tide of change once the sacred core had been removed. Games without native faith turned into shells, useful for propaganda, but hollow inside. For centuries afterwards, Olympia existed only in fragments of poetry and scattered historical accounts. Nero's name persisted as a warning, Theodosius's edict as a symbol of finality. The sanctuary itself lay quietly, sealed beneath stone and earth, still holding traces of temples, statues, altars, and treasuries. Buried and then forgotten, Olympia would wait a long time before anyone remembered how to ignite that flame again. After centuries of silence, the idea of reviving Olympia's spirit resurfaced in the modern world. What was once buried beneath silt and ruins became the inspiration for something far greater. Not just a local festival for rival polis, but a global tradition that could resonate with every nation. This marked the rekindling of a flame. By the 19th century, archaeologists were clearing the grounds of Olympia. Column drums, remains of temples, and even the ancient starting lines of the stadium re-emerged from beneath the earth. Each fragment demonstrated that the games had not disappeared, but had left behind a tangible record of their significance. Simultaneously, Europe experienced a surge of admiration for classical ideals. Ancient Greece was celebrated not only as the birthplace of democracy, but also as the origin of an ethic where body and mind should be disciplined together. Schools established gymnasia, educators encouraged physical exercise, and writers drew lessons from the Greek concept of balance, known as arete, the pursuit of excellence. The rediscovery of Olympia fit seamlessly into this period. The ruins offered more than just history. They suggested a model for how divided societies could find unity through ritualized competition. It was in this atmosphere that the French educator Pierre de Coubertin began to argue that sport could have broader significance. Coubertin worried that modern schools produced brilliant minds but neglected the body, weakening character as a consequence. He saw in the Greek gymnasium a superior ideal: train thought and muscle together, cultivate both discipline and harmony. For him, athletics fostered courage, taught fair rivalry, and conveyed lessons in cooperation. He drew on the Greek principle of mens sana in corpore sano, a sound mind in a sound body, and believed that reviving the games could promote peace as well as strength. This vision needed structure. In 1894, Coubertin convened an international congress in Paris. From it came the foundation of the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, tasked with organizing a recurring festival that would bring nations together through shared competition. 2 years later, in 1896, the world witnessed the first modern Olympic Games. The venue was Athens, not Olympia. Choosing Athens connected the new nation of Greece to its historic roots, reinforced democratic symbolism, and provided facilities to host the event. The symbolism was effective. The revival was both international and deeply rooted in Greek culture. The Athens Games were modest compared to today, just over 200 athletes from 13 nations. But the echoes of antiquity were unmistakable. The event was linked to a 4-year cycle, marking each Olympiad as a new measure of time. Simple opening ceremonies conveyed solemnity, with athletes taking an oath of fair play. Victors were crowned with olive or laurel wreaths, a deliberate nod to Zeus's old sanctuary. And as athletes raced, wrestled, and leapt, spectators felt they were witnessing scenes directly inspired by ancient pottery. Small as it was, the festival took on new significance. In antiquity, victors elevated their polis. Now, victors elevated their nations. A tiny country, which might be insignificant in military or political strength, could suddenly bask in the pride of a runner's triumph. Nations rediscovered prestige in olive wreaths once more. Only now, the prize symbolized international identity rather than city loyalty. Yet differences from the ancient games were apparent. One sentence can sum them up. The modern games are secular rather than sacred, inclusive rather than restricted, and global rather than Panhellenic. That shift was crucial. In Greece, competition was honored with a sacrifice to Zeus. In 1896, the Games consciously shed their religious roots, aiming instead at unity through shared human striving. Ancient Olympia barred women and foreigners. Modern Athens welcomed all nations and later expanded to include women competitors. The line to the past was real, but far from identical. As the 20th century progressed, the Games experienced rapid growth. Paris followed Athens, St. Louis followed Paris. Soon, the Olympics were held across continents. New sports emerged, many of which were unknown in antiquity: swimming, cycling, and team events. Yet tradition was preserved through ritual. The quadrennial rhythm continued, forming a standard world calendar. The oaths survived, tying each Games to a sense of integrity. And in 1936, one striking innovation strengthened the link to antiquity: the Olympic flame. That year, a flame was lit at Olympia using the sun's rays gathered in a concave mirror, then carried by relay to the host city, Berlin. Since then, every Games has repeated the ritual. The torch ceremony created a visible symbol of continuity. Ancient Olympia provided the light, and the modern world carried it forward. The symbolism matters. In antiquity, Olympia's ash altar smoked with sacrifice at every Games. The modern flame, though secular, deliberately echoes that imagery. Its meaning, however, is transformed. Where fire once signified obedience to Zeus, today it marks an act of shared imagination. The torch passing across oceans and mountains declares that the Games still belong to all. As you watch it travel across borders, you are reminded not of myth, but of collective attention and cooperation. This is one of the subtle achievements of the revival. The Games shed their gods, but kept their ritual rhythm. The 4-year cycle remains, similar to the original Olympiad count, but its significance has shifted from a sacred obligation to a secular ritual of global gathering. The flame still burns as it once did, yet it now signifies unity through human choice, not divine command. Of course, the modern Olympics are much larger than their sacred ancestor. Stadiums with tens of thousands of seats rise in host cities. Television broadcasts every contest to billions. Sponsorship, branding, and spectacle have become inextricably linked to the event. Yet beneath all this modern scale, the core thread remains visible: humanity choosing to compete within rules in front of the world to test discipline and effort. The fundamental lesson endures, that shared rituals can outweigh political rivalry. Could you think about what the revival signifies? In ancient Greece, contests turned rivalry into ritual. In the modern world, the Olympics strive to achieve the same goal, but on a global scale. Nations meet not merely as rivals, but as participants in a shared tradition, repeating cycles of competition that echo those of 776 BC. That rhythm has proved powerful enough to cross centuries. What began as a means of survival for city-states has evolved into a stage for humanity as a whole. The olive crown has become medals, the ash altar has become torches, the oath to Zeus has become pledges to fair play. In every case, the symbols have changed. However, the underlying message remains. We still need shared rituals to unite us and withstand division. And this leads us back to the central lesson. Across ages, different gods, and shifting nations, the games have persisted in altered forms because they prove one thing: competition can bind rather than break. So, what does Olympia's long story leave us with? The conclusion is simple yet powerful. The ancient Olympics addressed a political issue through ritual and rhythm, and that approach still resonates in how communities foster peace. Next time you watch the games, remember they are more than just sport. They carry the echoes of a 3,000-year-old festival, retold today through cycles, oaths, and the torch lit in Olympia that continues to cross borders.